This conference will now be recorded.
Morning, everyone. It is 10:30, and we will go ahead and get started. Holly, would you please call roll? And board members, if you would introduce yourselves as a matter of responding to the roll call.
Wendy Hess.
Present from Woodbury County, representing communication centers.
Travis Solom. Bridget Edson.
Present, Chickasaw County EMS, representing EMS.
Mindy Benson. Michelle Bischoff.
Present, representing Iowa Professional Firefighters.
Curtis Woughton.
Present, representing volunteer fire departments.
David Ness. Dan Schaefer.
Present, Lake City Police representing municipal police.
Dan Fang.
Present, representing Sheriff's Office, Worth County Sheriff's Office.
Jeff Vanderwater. Rhonda Broaddus. Anna Voss. Cindy Hike. I see Cindy's on. Daniel Brown, he won't be here. Michael Strasser. Keith Hove.
Present, Iowa Department of Public Safety.
Patrick Updike.
Patrick Updike, present, Iowa Department of Corrections.
Blake DeRucci.
Present, representing Iowa Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Jessica Turba. And we need one more to make a quorum. Travis, did you see Travis? Oh, Travis is here now. Okay. So we do have a quorum.
All right, very well, thank you. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate everyone's time. We're just going to dive right into our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Bank will make the motion to approve.
In a second.
Oval second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from the August 10th meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
In a second. I think there was a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, get started with our reports. SWCC report, SWCC Nichols.
Thanks, Chair Bischoff. A little bit long one today, sorry about that. Boards and Commissions Review Committee met on September 6th, and I did sit on that public comment meeting. Many speakers on at least 48 different boards and commissions. There were no comments made directly relating to Isicsb. A couple key takeaways that I took from that meeting. One of the committee members and numerous speakers mentioned that the minutes did not include the reports from the 6 subcommittees, which led to those recommendations made. And so the uncertainty by what the recommendations mean is difficult to speak on. Most of the discussion was on the gender balance recommendation and the elimination of licensing requirements for other professions that don't involve us. The committee wanted to make clear that they only make recommendations and they provide a report to the governor, and they themselves are not writing any legislation. Comments will be accepted through the end of the day, September 17th. That's this Sunday, by emailing to that email that you should have received in your email from Chair Bischoff. Then the committee will submit any changes to the recommendations. Those will be received by 9/20, and then a final draft meeting is on the 25th, where they will then produce their final report due to the governor on November 30th, just so you're aware of that timeline that was shared with me. Moving on, the SCIP scoping call was held August 31st. Through that, a schedule was determined to hold the webinars for each committee. Then we'll come together in February for a workshop to bring it all together. I do have a schedule prepared if you want Holly to pull it up so you can see. Otherwise, those webinars will come to your committee emails. We tried as best that we could to schedule the webinars in accordance with regular committee meetings, so that wasn't always possible. Please put these dates on your calendar. We will need strong participation in those webinars so we can get work done on this timeline. Does anybody want Holly to bring that up? Or another better option maybe would be that I just email it out to the board and you can disseminate to your group also. Okay, that's what we'll do. There has been a TA request submitted for a COMEX to be held in Story County next spring. If this request is approved, it'll be an opportunity for CAP books to be signed off on. I will be recruiting evaluators for this event also, so if you're interested or know someone who does that, please put it in their ear that that should be happening. Another thing that happened is we've had a request to pick up the work previously drafted for the National Weather Service to be on Isicsb. From what I understand and from some draft standards, there is a pilot program in the Des Moines area for the Des Moines National Weather Service to be on Isicsb. And that has been working well. So we will look at what options we have to get the other areas on. Last night I got back from an Illinois and Wisconsin functional exercise where they were doing interstate interoperability, and both states have been in contact with Iowa over the last few months about expanding this maybe in 2025. And so I was very happy to be invited over there and thankful for that opportunity just to build those relationships and understand their solutions to interoperability. They did successfully tie the Illinois state system into the Wisconsin state system with a crosswalk for the first time during this exercise, which is the same technology that Iowa uses with Minnesota. And we are also inviting Minnesota and the folks that created that standard and that technology situation to the technology committee that will be September 28th in an effort to understand, so new people can understand that technology, figure out the best practices, make sure that we remind people what is available there, and then hopefully take that to the rest of our bordering states. So we've proven in a couple of situations that technology is working, and it's time to look at bordering states. Recently, Nebraska and Missouri have also been in contact with what would work. We have received an invitation to present on Isicsb at the Emergency Management Conference and at the State Fire School in January. So we're preparing, a small group is preparing a presentation for that. I think this outreach for EMS and fire personnel is important and would welcome any suggestions on what information would be most beneficial, high-level overview of Isicsb and what they need to know about boots on the ground use of Isicsb, and also other opportunities to present for stakeholders. And then finally, for your situational awareness, and just in case of questions, a reminder that DPS sent out a letter to 40 different PSACs who currently have the ICN circuit connections into Isicsb paid for by DPS. Those payments will be ending June 24th. The only action needed based on that letter is for those PSAPs to fill out the billing information on an electronic form. So far, those have started to come in, and we've only received very few questions, so it seems to be working with no problem. But Captain Pierce, who couldn't be here today, just wanted me to remind everyone that that's in progress. And that is all I have for today, unless there are any questions I can answer.
Great. Excuse me. Thank you, Swicki Nichols. Appreciate the report. Are there any questions? That brings us to the 911 Council report, and Blake DeRushi.
Thank you, Chair. Haley brought up the boards and commission review. Just for everyone's awareness, the 911 Council was listed on that initial recommendation to be eliminated. If you feel strongly about that one way or the other, I would encourage you to participate in the public comment and feedback process. Until an additional decision is made on that legislatively, we will continue to meet just before the Isicsb board. So the rest of the meeting today, we did approve 2 training requests, one for the APCO and NENA conferences held the end of October. Those will be training from the Healthy Dispatcher. And then another one, Fayette County has kind of an all-day training. One of these sessions is on fire dispatch, so we approved training for that, as training funds as well for that. Finally, we have a work group of GIS specialists that are working on updating the 911 GIS data standards. Mostly that is to incorporate some of the NENA changes from that data standard. So that's kind of in a final draft right now, and we will be getting that out to the 911 and GIS community just as soon as that is finalized. That is my report. I would take any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Program Manager DeRushi. Are there any questions? User Group Committee, Chair Hess.
The user group committee met on August 17th and reviewed the applications that will be up for approval later in the meeting. Nothing else really to report unless there's any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Wendy. Are there any questions for the user group committee? Finance Committee, Swicki Nichols.
Yes, so colleagues that have pulled up here, revenue collected for the month of August were $130.40, and interest monthly expenses $14,264.13, with an ending cash balance $205,308.75. No unusual expenses.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions regarding the Finance Committee or the elements presented? Governance Board, Chair Ness.
I had a conflict and I was unable to participate in the call on Monday, so I'll defer to Haley if she can cover that as well.
Yes, absolutely. We did have our meeting and reviewed a number of things. First was the new policy called the Policy Naming Convention. Governance had concluded there's a final draft, so that will be shared through committee, and any comments or edits will be made. The same with the policy update and review policy on how we will, on a 3-year rotational basis, review policies and how changes to those will be made. You all see those in committee before we make any edits and bring it back to the board. Also, governance looked over the TICP and FOG, which will be later in the meeting for final adoption, and there were only a couple of comments there that I'll talk about. And that is the end of the governance report.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any questions for the governance committee? Operations, Chair Edson.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Bischoff. We met last week. We were able to review our committee goals and make some adjustments on those. And we also reviewed the TICP and the IFOG and support the just changes and whatnot that have been brought forward in that. So that was our committee meeting.
Somebody in the car is on unmute.
You're identified as caller 13, if that is of any assistance. Thank you, Chair Edson. Appreciate the report. Are there any questions for operations? Training and Outreach Committee, Chair Solon.
Well, I was unable to attend and be part of any of those meetings as I was in between employment, but hopefully Swift Nichols has something to report.
Sure, yeah, no problem. They worked diligently on the status board training. It's a slow process when you only meet once a month, so I know that you guys hear that a lot, but it's coming together. Jacob Reineke from DPS Communications is doing the bulk of the work on the PowerPoint, and then Aaron Froning will be recording that. So as soon as we have that, we will I'll let you know that that's finalized. Also, a reminder about the courses coming up that I failed to mention in the 911 Council meeting, but there is an Instant Tactical Dispatcher course to be held in Pottawatomie County coming up soon, October 3rd through the 6th. 20 student maximum. We're nowhere near that, so if there's anyone who's interested, there is room for you. I believe we just hit the minimum, so that will be held, but that registration is live, so please sign up. And then Communications Technician, that was rescheduled and will be held at ILEA in Johnston, October 23rd to the 27th. There is still room. Also, there's a 16-person maximum, and we have met the minimum for that also. So that will be held. This is the second time we tried to schedule that, and without meeting those minimums or very close to that, I wouldn't look to have a ComT probably next year again. So if that's at all of interest, probably a good time to sign up. And then just a reminder that there will be a 4-hour overview of incident management and incident tactical dispatcher courses. It's not a credentialing or where you get a certification, but just a kind of a reminder course, and there are just one left, September 19th. Those are sessions you just log into with web link, I believe, and I can share those if anyone has questions. And that's all I have for training.
Great, thank you for the update. And Chair Solon, congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for training and outreach? That brings us to the Technology Committee and Chair Updike.
Thanks. Technology met August 24th and September 5th. First item is we did one final review of the TICP IFOG documentation. One of the other things that I don't know if it was mentioned, but they've been working with Swift Nichols on the air-to-ground licensing process, so we've been making sure all of that's squared up with the proper number of mobiles and emission designators, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, maybe Haley wants to expand upon that.
All I know is, we're working with Amanda, I did miss that, I had it written in here, Breadstrup with, she's a senior processor with APCO International. She's been very helpful. She's also taken some of her questions directly to the FCC to get us a complete application for licensing those. What she mentioned was the frequencies don't have to go through a normal coordination procedure, really just needs this application, and so I think that the process is currently going very smoothly, and she should be back to us with what it will cost and the approval to move forward once she has all that information. But I haven't heard from her this week, so I think that's going smoothly.
So that is, good news for us in the big scheme of things. The next thing that we've been working on is the discipline-specific encryption off-system conventional resources document, which you can see on the screen. And from the public comments that we got and discussion with the members, we've come up with this plan that you're looking at that shows the naming of these channels. And if you're familiar with the low power itinerates listed on page 56 of the NIFOG, it follows that pattern where we've placed dashes in between there. And granted, it eats up a lot of space, but the idea is if we put this in the ICS 217A, it's a little bit easier to read. So what we've done is we've named them with the dashes in there. We've set aside encrypted channels for law. It looks a little bit out of place because you've got two encrypted channels right next to each other, but then you go to law 8D, which is unencrypted, and then law 9DE. So the other thing that we came up with was to put the NAC transmit and receive codes in there. A talk group ID, which would default to talk group ID 1. And the other thing that we discussed was if a county wants to do something as far as a talk group ID on their own, they could set it up with their county, like C73. That's where I'm at. I'm in Page County. So if Page County wanted to do something with a talk group, they could set it up as C73. So that's pretty easy. It's all set up by county number. And then you can see where the SLNs show up on that. So I did push this over to governance and operations, and we're hoping that, maybe they can look this over and come back with any suggestions. And then what we would do is we would push this out for another 30-day comment once they've had time to scrub this. So we're in a holding pattern on that. One of the other things that's come up in our discussions with licensing of the Isicsb frequencies is should we amend those licenses that pertain only to the Isicsb system to add the Isicsb name and a contact name on that license so that it kind of gives a better idea of who when somebody is looking at a license, they can go, oh, this is Isicsb. We seem to think that would have been easier than just going out and trying to separate those frequencies to a new FRN and going through a bunch of paperwork when we could just amend the current licensing to reflect an Isicsb contact name and number on it. So that's something that I would hope everybody would think about. We can send out, if so desired, we can push out a recommendation to the board to do that. But just, kind of do a little bit of housekeeping as far as the licensing on Isicsb type frequencies, because the air to ground channels is going to fall under that. And if we get these additional frequencies added under this discipline-specific encryption topic, we would do the same thing there. So something to think about. Keep it on your radar, and we'll keep you updated as we move along. And then the last thing, and Swick Nichols already mentioned it, the next technology meeting at the end of September is going to include some people from other states regarding interoperability across state lines as it relates to trunking systems that exist in those adjacent states. So that's all I have for right now.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate your report as well as your team's effort in keeping all of this technology, staying abreast of it, and coming back with recommendations. In regards to the licensing piece, I think having a recommendation from the technology committee would be helpful. It would be a good conversation starter and to give us something to discuss. I think something too that we likely should keep in mind is our committee was slated to be reorganized. So that may factor in, depending, I don't know what reorganizing means, but depending upon what that ends up meaning, that may impact part of that decision as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Patrick. FirstNet Broadband Committee, Chair Benson.
I don't give a shit long. Okay, I can take it, or, yeah, I can take that.
Thank you, Swick.
Yeah, sure. So we met and had a good discussion. Mr. Lampy will probably update the group on what he provided there, and there was no new actionable items. So we'll just let him repeat it so I don't have to do it twice. Thanks.
Very well. That makes for an easy report. Thank you, Swick. I appreciate it. Are there any questions for FirstNet Broadband Committee? Okay, moving on to other reports. Information sharing with board members. Does anyone have anything that they would like to share? All right, I have a few update items to share with you. In regards to the Conley Group, Assistant Attorney General Peter Zellick spoke with their attorney, Conley's attorney, and reiterated that Conley is not an eligible user on their own and that they need to be sponsored in order to be on the system. So that's been communicated, seems to be understood. We've heard nothing further. So should that resurface, we'll make the board aware. But at this moment, it is handled best we know. We are meeting with the FCC the first part of October to review other eligibility questions and ensure that the board is utilizing best practices and that we're upholding the FCC regulations. So we'll get some answers to our current practices. Has been mentioned in this meeting previously, but we are working on a SCIP update, and those meetings are forthcoming. This is a very important activity that the board undergoes every 5 years to put together our strategic plan, which really is our roadmap of where we're going and what we're working on. So appreciate everyone's efforts toward that and making time for those meetings. It is a bit time consuming, but it's well worth the effort. And one last thing is I have asked Swick Nichols to investigate the status of the technologies surrounding the ISSI and if any significant changes or advancements have occurred on that front to be able to connect to disparate vendor networks. There's been several inquiries about the status of that. It's been a few years since we last investigated. It was pre-COVID. So looking to see if there's been any advancements, and if there have been, then we'll reconvene a group to do a deeper study of what it would take to do it if the technology would afford us a solid public safety grade connection between the two systems. Additionally, in regards to the boards and commission conversation, I have in the chat the email address as well as the most recent press release regarding that committee's activity. And you can, from that press release, you can get to most all of the information surrounding that, and searching the state's website is also a very effective boards and commission review. Will get you quite a bit of information if you so choose to dig into that topic. Are there any questions regarding the items that I've provided an update to, or has anyone else thought of items they'd like to share information about? All right, that brings us to our system administrators report. Scott Richardson or Connie Stufflebeam?
Thank you, Chair. This is Scott Richardson. Got a few Isicsb maintenance notes here. Quarterly Isicsb core security patching was completed on September 7th. That went smoothly. Currently, the annual RF maintenance is progressing in the Des Moines area. That started yesterday. Will involve 8 sites in the Des Moines metro area and will conclude on Friday the 22nd. We're doing 1 site per day on that, and you should have seen an updated schedule that was sent out by me this morning. Additionally, there's going to be some tower crews working around the state, mainly replacing broken radomes, and that will be today through the 23rd, it looks like, and some of those sites will be Shelby, Atlantic, Adair North, Bremer, Sioux, O'Brien, and Woodward. And like I say, most of those are broken radomes. That's all I have on maintenance. As far as Isicsb numbers for August of 23, radios currently stand at 33,839. Our talk groups are at 3,114. And our push-to-talk last month were banging on the door of 3 million. We were at 2,990,540. And that concludes my report, unless there are any questions. Nope. I think she's still muted. Muted.
You are so perceptive. Yes, I was. Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, that brings us to the FirstNet Authority and Tom Lampy.
If I could have a favor, Holly, I sent you my PowerPoint on email. Did you get it by chance? I just sent it like 5 minutes ago. My laptop isn't going to work.
Hang on a minute.
But I will update you before while she's getting that. I was at the broadband committee yesterday. They reported that we're in the build-out phase after the 5 years. I think I told you this last week. We're in the enhancement phase now. So the enhancement phase means what is the network doing for you? Where are the holes in the network in Iowa, for instance? And what technology can we do by going through FirstNet Authority to work with AT&T to get the coverage where you need it, whether that be a deployable or a permanently fixed tower. So we're working through that. A lot of states, and you have it pretty much laid out here for you with your RICs to create workshops to identify those coverage areas and then to help me understand where they're at so I can get that up through the chain. And we'll start on that one. Get that up through the chain so we can get the reporting going out. It's not a promise that every time when you say you want a tower here, it's going to happen. And we all have got to understand that you can't have a tower every quarter mile or half a mile in the state, but you got to be, we've be reasonable where there's some big holes, to get that filled. So I need that input. I need that input from Iowa in order to get that up. I think from the maps that I've seen, and I can't show you any today, but my intent is to get the AT&T here to show you the actual maps from where it was 5 years ago to where it is today. And it's pretty significant. I'm pretty impressed with it. I'm very comfortable with it, but there are some holes, and there always will be. Just like Isicsb, there's going to be holes. Especially with the cellular network, it's just a little bit different than a radio network, doesn't go as far. But the other thing was the governor's, I promised you that the governor's meeting for Iowa will be coming up by the end of the year. I'm getting closer. It's coming towards the middle of October now. So I will let you know that date, and I would like to have two representatives, if possible, come with me to that meeting to represent the First Night Broadband Committee or the board. So if you could let me know who that is, but I'll get that date locked in, and when I do, I'll send you the date as soon as I get it. And then you can, if you want to send somebody, you can, and you're not required to, but I think it'd be good for the board to show off what you've accomplished here in the last 5 years and how the journey has been with the FirstNet piece. That's the whole intent of the meeting, is to update each governor in each state the 5 year, where we're at from 5 years ago when we signed the contract to join FirstNet in Iowa. I'll let you know when that comes. I need to know anything that you're having issues with the network. You gotta let me know. That could be retail, how your bill's messed up. You got a coverage issue, you had a network experience where you couldn't get through. We've had a few of those where they were at some large events, and we found out it was just a simple networking problem that we had to call attention to AT&T to fix. So remember, you should always get through. Part of the deal with the AT&T building this network for FirstNet was that they gave us priority on all the bands, not just band 14. Band 14 is a Rolls Royce of bands, but they gave us priority on all of them. So you should always get through. When the network's congested, that's the whole purpose of the FirstNet, is give you true priority and true encryption end to end. So I need to know when you don't have a good experience so I can help get that fixed. I need to know if you need a deployable somewhere. I need to know if you have a training event where you'd like to see a deployable to see how it works. All those kinds of things I need to know, and that's why I'm here, so we can get it remedied for you, and you can see what the actual network is doing. Last week, I got to go to Boulder. I was there for 2 days. I got to go to the lab. I know some of you have been to the lab, and I got to see the priority and preemption actually work. And for those who have went before, I think you've seen, probably got your eyes opened up on really, truly how it does work. When they did that demonstration of the phone streaming video, and then the two FirstNet users were using it, and then they loaded up the network with public safety. And as they loaded that network, that video for the commercial side just froze and got choppy and froze completely useless because FirstNet was in the room, so to speak, and we needed the network at the time. So that was a good demonstration of truly what you get with the priority piece. Now I'll start with, this is a quick snapshot. It's a real short slideshow. Can you get to the actual presentation mode?
What's that?
The presentation mode itself. Like go up to slideshow. Right up there, yeah. You start from the beginning. Clear to the left. Keep going. There you go. Oops. There you go. Now, one more. Next slide. Okay, so we all know the FirstNet journey started back in 2001. The attacks, when we all needed communication, we found out, and the journey keeps going across. We did our initial consultations here in Iowa. We did all our outreach in Iowa here with all our 99 counties. Remember when Sean Wagner was here? We did all those outreach, and we did our state consultation here in November of that year. And then we all met with the broadband committee to plans to build out. We got to see our actual build out for the RAN, the radio access network, FirstNet and AT&T, what they were going to do. And that was 5 years ago. So here we are. Now we're on the roadmap, and we're reinvesting those dollars. We continue to engage, just like I am here today. Engage. and collaborate with you to see what you need from the network now that it's 5 years old. So the base network is done. I don't like to say done. It's the 5-year requirement is there. What you required in Iowa to be built, they have met. And you'll see that when I get you the map and when you get to see that map. And you'll get to compare from where we all were in that room that day and looked at what they were going to say they did to what they said they did. And I think they probably exceeded that. And you'll see that. So beyond that, like I said, we're at the expansion and the enhancement phase. We're reinvesting those dollars of the $18 billion that was slated. $6.5 billion of that goes back into the network. We make payments to AT&T, and then they return the payment because we own the spectrum of band 14. So they lease that from us, and we stick that money right back into the network. And that's what gets you tower sites. That's what gets you deployable. That's what gets you the training. That's what funds myself and all of our other public safety advisors. That's how that works. So it doesn't cost anything because they're paying us and we're using that spectrum money. Next slide. We still have the dedicated FirstNet core, which is a big difference between the FirstNet and the commercial users. We have a massive deployable program. We have over 150 of those. Currently, we're inventorying those. So I have to go, like to Urbandale, for instance, there should be a deployable set there. And I have to inventory them, make sure that they got that's a contract thing. Mission critical push to talk. The enhanced push to talk is taking shape. It's always been there, but it's taking shape now. You can kind of get your talk groups pushed into on an LTE device, so you can actually use Isicsb on your LTE device. We still have the high power user equipment available. We're working on the Z access with that. That's in building locations for your GPS locations, especially for firemen in buildings. Active shooters would be a good one as well. We still have the Black SIM, and we still have the 24/7, of course, support. And the Internet of Things, we're constantly testing things in the lab. And we have an app store that every app that we push through is thoroughly tested in the lab, so it works for you. We recently found out some things about a device that we were pushing out that nobody would probably have ever found but our lab did find it, and it's a software issue. So they told the vendor about it, and it was immediately fixed. So that's the kind of things that we do for you with the special apps and the network. Next slide. I got to go through that public safety immersive test centers, the 3D, with the next generation where you can actually go into a room and see and map out rooms and by using the FirstNet network, and you can see that live. So it's 3D goggles is what it is. And the lab is still up and running. We got our own site. First 5G site is inside the lab now. We got to see the site in the lab, which is just a box on the wall, but it's an actual 5G site. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of the 3GPP. That's the standards. It's similar to like the P25 standards on radio. This is the standards for the broadband side. This is what they do. So if you click on that video link and see if it'll play for me. Can you click on that link there under the 3GPP? It says the place to be on Vimo.
Right in the center, probably the blue underline. The blue underlined word there in the center. Oh, that one, okay.
You're good. I sprung this on you, so. Go. I'll see if it'll play. And it probably won't.
You want me to play it?
Yes, can you play it? Did you click on it? You're on the internet here? That's no big deal. It isn't going to play. Those links sometimes, they work on my laptop and you push them somewhere and they don't work. That's fine. So the roadmap, we have a specific division in FirstNet Authority just for roadmap on where we're at, where we're headed to. I will tell you that I'm thoroughly impressed with how organized the authority is when it comes to where they were 5 years ago to where they're at today. I was kind of in the FirstNet thing when I was with the state, just kind of promoting that, but now being inside the fishbowl, so to speak. First Net Authority is highly organized. They got people, they got enough people to do what the job needed to do. And it's all about you guys and the public safety that use this network. If you tell me that there's an issue, I got a certain amount of time and I got to take care of that for you, and I would anyway, but they take a very hard look, a very close look on what the issue is to get it remedied as fast as they can. After you have a network experience, like after disaster or flood or tornado, we got a network experience engagement program where we sit around and tell us what worked and what did not work. So we got a program for that. We'll get more into that as I keep visiting with you. We'll get more into it and show you that kind of thing. Next slide. One more. So the contract, it's a massive contract, of course, kind of like the Isicsb contract with Motorola. This is a contract that the federal government, Department of Commerce, who I work for, is the oversight on the AT&T's performance. Each month, they look at the contract, they look at what is supposed to be deliverables. There's a lot of task orders, what AT&T is supposed to deliver. They get the lawyers involved. There's a special team. That's all they do is look at that contract and make sure that they're being upheld. We go out in the field and on the oversight. Some of the examples I gave you is to make sure that they're audited on a regular basis. I don't audit them, but we're told what to go look for. And if we hear things, we pull it up the chain and make sure that the contract is withheld. So make sure you get what we ask for. That deals with coverage, capacity, adoption figures. They have to meet so many adoption figures in this contract. They have to maintain those. So that's part of the contract. So is it a perfect contract? No contract probably ever is. But there are some things that they have to do for us. And when they prepared this contract, that was part of it. So each state and territory has specific commitments that were required, kind of like the portal that we signed off on for Iowa. There's specific things in there that they are supposed to meet. So I take a look at that as well. Next slide. Beyond the fleet, we're continuing to expand the deployables fleet. There's the mini CRD, there's the CRD, there's that deployable van, truck, which takes a little longer. I got to see all that and actually use it out in the lab. And whoever went out there probably did see the CRD and the mini CRDs, which is a suitcase, Pelican case for about a mile coverage. We continue to enhance that core. The important thing, what we're reinvesting the dollars in right now today is 5G. We have to keep up with the competitor in the market itself. We can't stay on 4G if everybody else is on 5G. Otherwise, you won't subscribe, you won't adopt. It's pointless. So we are on top of making sure that we're sticking and investing our money into 5G. And you should be seeing your phone on 5G more and more as you travel across the state. The in-building coverage is going to be part of the plan here for the reinvestment piece. If you know in your FirstNet customer, paid subscriber, and you have a hospital, a school, a fire department, a police department that doesn't have coverage, let me know, and there's ways to get that for you, probably at no cost, more than likely at no cost. So you gotta, but I have to know that, so in order to get those devices for you in those critical infrastructure. Because one of the requirements, and I remember specifically, when we did this, is we wanted the hospitals, the courthouses, and both of our rivers on both sides of Iowa covered. Now, tornadoes are everywhere. You can't possibly put it wherever you think a tornado is going to be, but those are the things that were required, and that includes the in-building piece. Next one should be about that. We continue to evolve, and like I just explained, the coverage enhancements. National approach is where are your holes? We can't fill every one of them, but we have to have a common approach. What's going to be kind of difficult to do is where do you put those towers? How do you determine that tower is needed? Is it because there's nothing within 10 miles? You got a big hole within 10 miles? I would say that's probably a good example. If you're along a river or you got a lot of calls to this area, the population has grown since 5 years ago, and now there's a hole there. So those are the kinds of things we look at, and I count on you and the RICs to give me that information. And I'll be on the RIC calls when I can, and I was on the one yesterday, it was a good one, to explain how we can do this. Next slide, and it should be the end. Okay, so any questions? That was quick, but I'll keep feeding you the updates as we go to make sure you understand the importance of it and where it's at all times. I do not sell, I will not sell, that's not my job. I'm from the authority side, AT&T, they have their own salesman. So I'm here to help you to get the information to make sure that they hold up their bargain, end of the contract, and give you what you need. Okay, questions?
Great, thank you, Tom. Appreciate the presentation and the overview of FirstNet from the authority's perspective. Are there any questions for Tom? All right, now we'll hear from AT&T and Tyler Richard.
I don't see him on.
NSA or anyone representing AT&T? All right, moving on. CISA update. Chris Myers, I believe you're on the line.
I am, Chair Bischoff. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but greetings from the North and East today. While I am out in the Northeast, Jeremy Johnson from Region 8 will be serving as backup as needed. So if you can't get a hold of me right away, Jeremy would be the good one to reach out to. I don't expect to be too out of touch based on what's in front of us here, but if anything does happen, I'll let you all know, and Jeremy is here to help out. So assuming you can see my slide deck, since I am on the phone, we can go to the first slide, and we'll talk about the SafeCom Nationwide Survey. That survey does conclude this month. The response rate from Iowa has been very, very good, and we hope that we can pull through towards the finish line, which is right around September 28th, I believe. Again, this data is scraped every 5 years from agencies via a 30 to 60-minute survey. And this data does get aggregated into a large data set that's used to drive policy decisions, possibly grant funding, and all sorts of products that CISA and DHS put out that are geared towards public safety. So if you haven't yet taken the survey, I highly encourage you to take it. Make sure your voice is heard, and we'd love to continue to see the good response from CISA Region 7 states, such as Iowa, in these results. On to the next slide. We do have some new products that CISA has published this month that may be of interest to Iowa specifically. First one is the SafeCom Writing Guide for Standard Operating Guidelines. This was just released about a week or so ago officially. It is intended to help communities and jurisdictions develop or update SOGs that they may have already in place or are looking to create. SOGs are a relatively new concept as opposed to SOPs, and they can be very flexible. And while this guide itself is not intended to be all-inclusive or address every issue that may come up during the development or update of these SOGs or SOPs, it does have some significant highlights that are worthwhile pointing out to consider for each revision or drafting. It is organized into several sections. It begins with a brief introduction on each one and asks the reader some questions that might be beneficial to consider as they go out through this journey of developing an SOG. CISA does encourage agencies to customize their SOGs to fit their operating parameters, technology, and overall needs to make sure that it fits the unique characteristics of specific states or their own jurisdictions. This SOG guide, I believe, went out a couple of weeks ago with one of my emails, a little bit early, but I do plan on sending it out again tomorrow with my news blast. On the next slide, this is a cybersecurity related product that was released just a couple of days ago. It's circled around open source software. Public safety agencies out there may use some form of open source software for some of their operations, and this is great because open source software tends to be developed very quickly. It's very collaborative in nature amongst the developmental community. However, there can be some security holes that are introduced into those platforms with that rapid development and the fact that anybody can contribute to it. Now, CISA has established some key priorities with understanding open source software and helping to ensure that your operation is secure. These include having visibility on how open source software is used within your agency and also the associated risks with that. Because if you understand your risks, you can reduce your risks as well. We also talk about hardening the open source ecosystem. Now, this document is kind of geared towards the federal government, but there are snippets that states and counties and municipalities can grab and incorporate into their own way of doing business. This document will also go out tomorrow morning. The last document that will go out that's outlined on the next slide is an information sheet on deepfakes. If you've ever seen a deepfake before, these are the things that people can post online that make it look like someone is saying something they never did or is in a place that they never were. This information sheet was released by CISA, the NSA, and the FBI just a couple of days ago, and it does provide a very broad overview of synthetic media threats in general. That includes techniques and recent trends. It talks about how organizations and their employees may be vulnerable to these types of deep fakes as they come in. This could be through something like a fake account that's used for social engineering purposes, fake and fraudulent text and voice messages, and also fake videos. The thing to keep in mind here is that in a public safety world, a lot of times some of our early interactions with the public come from things like voice, be it a 911 call or a video. So this type of understanding of how these deepfakes and synthetic media threats are out there will be important ultimately to possibly enhancing the posture of public safety to understand what's going on with the situation and how best to address it. This, of course, will go out tomorrow with my email as well. Finally, regional items of note. The interoperability markers meetings have been completed, and that data is being aggregated nationally, so that is a good thing. We have some COML courses coming up in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri later this month. We're wrapping up an INTD in Dodge City this week. And of course, the Kansas and Nebraska interoperability boards meet at the tail end of this month. One thing that's not on this slide that will also go out tomorrow is CISA Region 7 is hosting a emergency services panel for Cybersecurity Awareness Month in October. And your very own Blake DeRushi will be a guest speaker for us on that panel to talk about fortifying and securing a statewide 911 network with the 911 EZNet, and how that the availability characteristics are balanced with the need for confidentiality and integrity. And we're looking very forward to having Blake on that panel. That invite will go out again tomorrow. I would encourage everybody to sign up for that. We have many seats available, and that would be my report for the day. Chair Bischoff, I can go ahead and take any questions.
Fantastic, thank you. And thank you for calling in to give your report. Always appreciated. Stay safe there in the Boston area. Are there any questions for Chris? All right, hearing none. Is there any old business? That brings us to new business. The new Isicsb user approval. Chair Hess.
I was going to ask, Patrick, do you want to vote on the Department of Corrections facilities separately?
Yeah, that would be appreciated if you could split those out.
Okay. So first, I will make a motion to approve both the Appanoose County Sheriff's Office, which is an updated application to Level 2, and Corn Belt Power Cooperative, which is a new application for Level 2.
Schaefer will motion to approve.
Wendy motioned, so Fank, will you second? Or was it Schaefer? I'm sorry. It lit up and then it went away.
Schaefer moved.
Okay. So do we have a motion and a second? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing the room.
Schaefer made a motion to approve.
Okay, Schaefer did. I'm sorry. Chair Hess actually made a motion when she started, so we had a motion on the table, so we just need a second.
I'll second.
Fantastic, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to Chair Hess.
Okay, next I will make a motion to approve two of the Department of Correction facilities. The first being the Fort Dodge Correctional Facility at Level 2, and the second being Iowa Correctional Institute for Women, Level 2.
Ness, second.
Fantastic. Is there any discussion?
Could we do a roll call on this, Chair Bischoff?
Certainly can.
Okay. Wendy Hess,
Aye.
Travis Solom,
Aye.
Bridget Edson,
Aye.
Mindy Benson, Michelle Bischoff,
Aye.
Curtis Wilton,
Aye.
David Ness,
Aye.
Dan Schaefer,
Aye.
Dan Fank,
Aye.
Jeff Vandewater, Rhonda Broadus, Anna's not on, Cindy Hike,
Aye.
Daniel's gone, Keith Hove,
Aye.
Patrick Updike,
Abstain.
Blake Jerushi,
Aye.
Jessica Turba. Okay.
And with that, the motion carries. Thank you. Our next item is to approve the update of the TICP and the IFOG. Swick Nichols, did you want to talk about this item?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder, the Tactical Interoperable Communications Plan is intended to describe Iowa's interoperable communications landscape, documents available for the interoperable communications of resources by each agency within the state, and to define rules of use or operational procedures for the activation and deactivation of each of those resources. The TICP provides tactical guidance to emergency responders at the regional level as interoperable communications needs progress from a local response to a state type 3 incident or greater. Then the FOG, Field Operations Guide, is just that, more of a condensed version of the same thing that you can carry around in your pocket, and it follows the same format also. So I'm excited to have this document made available to the responders in Iowa. Thank you very much to everyone who's worked on this almost for the last 9 months at least. One thing that was, the TICP and FOG were provided today in the documents for the meeting, but those do not include 3 changes. Perry Comm Center was listed, Iowa Falls Comm Center was listed in the chart, and those have been consolidated. So they need to be deleted, and also an amateur radio's call sign had a typo in it. They will be rectified in this final version. They're out to the contractor, which we're waiting on, and there's a process for that contractor to make the changes and CISA to review to be brought back to us. Just a reminder that changes like that are going to occur with these resources because of the nature of the document and personnel changes and contact changes that happen. I, as the SWIC, will be maintaining all those changes, and the most up-to-date document will always be available on the website. So I would recommend today that the board consider approving the TICP and FOG with those 3 changes that I mentioned that need to be made to both documents. And that's my recommendation to the board.
Great. Thank you, Swick Nichols. I'll entertain a motion.
Vote the motion.
And second,
Hank will second.
is there any discussion or questions regarding the TICP and IFOG? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for everyone's work on this. I think every committee has partaken and tried to make the documents as accurate and as best as they can for Iowa. So much appreciated. That brings us to credentialing, and we'd like to honor Sarah Eagle with the INTD credential. Swick Nichols.
Thank you very much. The most important of today's meeting, thanks for everybody who's hung around this long. I'd like to invite Sarah up front, please. Sarah has completed her position task book for the incident tactical dispatcher. She's now specifically trained to be able to dispatch in those field incidents outside of her comm center in unique situations with a higher stress level and to work in not the blue sky conditions, I guess I'll call them. So thank you very much, Sarah, for your work.
Thanks, smile.
And thanks to Clinton County for getting one more person in Iowa credentialed.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. I appreciate your efforts and are happy to present you the credentials. That brings us to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment? All right, hearing none. I have one bit of information sharing that I neglected. I sent you all an email shortly before the meeting in regards to the ARPA letter that has been submitted to the governor's office. So we'll follow up on that in a few weeks and see where we're at with that. But I did want to let everyone know that that has been submitted. And with that, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you all very much.